Why, hello there. Today I have on my conspiracy glasses. I think they make me look cool, and I need to look cool in order to have any hope of having you, the viewer, listen to any of my crazy ramblings on internet topics. And today is yet another day where I will go into the internet and voice my messed up opinions on things that are happening in the game industry that I really don't have any proof on. After all, I shouldn't be able to have proof because, hey, it's a conspiracy. Okay, so let's get started. And today we are going to discuss Jim Sterling and him giving the game Hellblade the score of a 1 out of 10, and then a few hours later canceling his score of a 1, saying that he wished to redo the score of the game. You see, most of the internet agrees that Mr. Sterling is a very good game critic. If you don't believe me, have a look at his Patreon account. You do not get this type of money by being bad at your job. Well, unless you're a politician. But very rarely do people ever express why Mr. Sterling is good at his job. Well, thanks to Mr. Sterling firing his gun a bit too fast in his past review of Hellblade, we now have the opportunity to analyze why Mr. Sterling is in fact a very good game critic. And keep in mind that I try to keep these videos short. And this isn't because you have a short attention span, it's because I have a short attention span and even less time than that. So let's go. Now, you see, Hellblade is an independent game, meaning that it has no major publisher behind it and is trying to tell its own unique story. Now, some of you might be saying that this sounds like The Witcher 3, but stick with me here, this is going somewhere. Hellblade is a game that looks and feels like a AAA experience, but without the hassle of any microtransactions or season passes or having absolutely any content locked behind a paywall. And these are all qualities that video game critic extraordinaire Jim Sterling promotes on a weekly basis. And finally, after all the rants against Konami and the tirades against EA or Activision, a game finally comes out that is the personification of all of Jim Sterling's teachings. So, given that this little game here is pretty much Jim Sterling's words coming into reality, one would assume that Jim Sterling would like it. Well, surprise, surprise, Mr. Sterling demolished it. He verbally lambasted this game to hell and back. He ripped it a new one, as some people would say. He assaulted it. Now, to be fair, it was actually quite amusing to think about, really. It's the equivalent of saying that you want a baby, and then when the baby is born, chopping off its legs and stunting its growth. The contradiction between words and actions here is so thick that if it were a fog, you wouldn't be able to see your own hand in front of your own face. But things change, and after uploading the video and taking a nap, Mr. Sterling got to wake up and realize that he kind of made a mistake. Because Mr. Sterling is a man and men can make mistakes. And his mistake was forgetting that he is a super duper critic whose scores sometimes show up on Metacritic, which means that his opinions carry weight and can hurt the sales of a game. And yes, that can be a bad thing if you let it, because here is where Mr. Sterling shines. After realizing his little mistake of jumping the gun, he contacted Metacritic in order to properly give the game another shot. He realized his own responsibility. Now, whether this was because of his own criticism not being so well received by the internet, no one really knows. But what matters here is the man's actions. And let's be honest, Mr. Sterling did not have to change his score on Metacritic. He could have buried his face in the sand and just locked himself away till it all blew over like so many others have tried to do. It takes a big man to realize his own mistakes and an even bigger one to act to rectify them. And this is what makes Mr. Sterling a very, very good game critic. We all have seen internet personalities whose thinking is so one-sided that they can't see anything but their own point of view, and any differentiating opinion pointing in their direction becomes the equivalent of talking into a brick wall. So, even though this is just a theory, probably a terrible theory on my part, I would still like to say thank you, Mr. Sterling. And while I won't thank God for you, I do appreciate you. There we are. That has been my little conspiracy on Mr. Jim Sterling and Hellblade. So, for those of you who might have missed what I was saying, let's go over the cliff notes of that whole little thing that I just said. First, Jim Sterling makes a mistake. Second, Jim Sterling fixes the mistake. Now, the question, why did Mr. Sterling fix the mistake? The answer, because the game is trying to do what he has been begging game companies to do for years. And if successful, it could lean toward other companies following suit and pushing a change in the gaming community that most game critics seem to agree that it needs. There, that wasn't so hard now, was it? Also, on a side note, I'm going to add a little Hellblade conspiracy. So, if you have not played Hellblade and do not want it spoiled, I'm giving you fair warning. I am going to talk about some heavy spoilers of the game and a small conspiracy. So, spoiler warning in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, now, at the start of Hellblade, it warns you that there is a permadeath system in the game, and that after enough deaths, the blackness will consume you and erase your save file. Now, here's the deal. The only way to beat the game is to die, and you will become or fuse with the blackness of a rotting, burning corpse, or whatever this is. And when you start the game after this, after you have beaten it and the credits have rolled, well, guess what? Your save file has been deleted. So, in essence, the game did tell the truth. Your death at the end of the game will lead to your save file being deleted. So once again, there you are, another mindfuck from this game. Also, playing it a second time might unlock some more stuff about the story, but I haven't tested this because, well, I don't have the time. Anyway, you all take care, and I will see you in my next video. And of course, I will not be talking like this. See you next time.